Hi, everyone.
Good morning, buongiorno in Italy for everyone. Nirio, thank you for being our host. So I'm first, I think.
Yes, we're switching roles here. I said ladies first. I said, let's have the gentleman go first, particularly since he has the best accent.
You know, the Aussie accent has served me well over the years, particularly when I lived in Atlanta, Georgia in the South, and the Southern Belles did, kind of like the accent. Anyway, but here we are in Italy, the home of one of the oldest civilizations in the world. And looking back 2,000 years, of course, this is where wellness was very relevant. Back then in the Roman days, they had these things called Roman baths. They had massages. They had their version of meditation, which they called stargazing. But before I get into that, if you would indulge me, just a couple of quick things about Techno Gym and love, if I can. My personal experiences. So Nirio, I think, may remember, back in the 90s, as we know, Techno Gym was founded in '83. In the 90s, as Techno Gym was moving across the Atlantic or the Pacific, US, Atlantic, Pacific to Australia. So, and he, as good marketers do, he said we must expose groups of Americans to what we do. So rather than them taking their equipment to the States, they brought groups of club operators to Italy. I was very privileged to be invited in one of those groups, 25 in the early 90s. It was hard back then for techno to get into the US market. It was dominated by other manufacturers. We had the most magnificent trip. I came with mostly guys I didn't know, some of whom I still do. So you talk about networking and connecting. We came to the old Techno Gym factory way back then. Nirio and his team wined us and dined us, and we fell in love. Now, not with what you think. We did fall in love with the food, we did fall in love with the country, but we all fell in love with Cinzia Folgari from Cesena. Now, where is Cinzia? She still works. I saw her last year when I saw her on the stage. I said, that's a Cinzia Folgari from Cesena. We all remembered her. So anyway, but I've had a connection with Techno. We invited them to the first Olympics in Atlanta, which you may remember because my company did. And then I recommended that they go on to Sydney. And from there, Techno has had the Olympics since then. So, and of course, we have Techno. We put it into Gwingana. That was our equipment of choice. We put the first kinesis in, which you may not remember. And my Gwingana, and it's only now after 13 years. It's timeless in its beauty. And it keeps on keeping on. Bad if you want to replace equipment, like these guys want to replace the equipment. 13 years later, just now in the last few months, we've finally decided to replace our Techno. So I have a lot of personal connections, and buongiorno, and thank you. So anyway, today we're here about the theme, of course, is shaping the business of wellness. Last year, the theme was living a well life. Most of us are here with our professional hats on. But for most of us all, it's all personal as well. We are all trying to figure out and all trying to look at and understand what's happening in the world of wellness. And those of us who are in our 50s and 60s and older, we are staring down the last 20 or so years of our lives. And the goal is certainly to live longer, but it's also to live well longer. You know, medicine today can prolong our life. It just cannot prolong the quality of our life. You know, my personal goal as I talk with different people, my personal goal is I'm nearly 66 and I hope to be beyond 85. I have a beautiful young wife, 17 years younger than me. I'm very blessed. And, but my personal goal is to die young, late in life. And I think it's what we eat, it's how we move, it's our headspace, it's community, it's love, absolutely. The theme of this year's conference is not the theme, but one of the underlying themes is love. And I think all of these things, and at this session over the next few days, you're going to be listening to a lot of speakers and a lot of people who are going to be educating us and informing us and just stimulating our thinking. One of those speakers, of course, will be Dan Buettner, talking about longevity. Some of you may be aware of the Blue Zones. Dan wrote the book. Some of you may be aware that the original Blue Zone sits very close to here. It's in Sardinia. There are 5 blue zones in the world, so Dan will be enlightening us onto the blue zones. And the reason they're called blue zones is the life expectancy in the blue zones is considerably higher than the rest of the world. So Dan has examined what is it that these people are doing. You know, the blue zones, is it about the Mediterranean diet? Is it about the climate they live in? You know, what is it that's so, he'll be sharing that with us. Bob Roth will be here as well. He'll be talking, telling us more about Transcendental Meditation, TM. Meditation is a huge buzzword right now. Everybody's figuring out what, when, how do we meditate. For business people like us, very hard to meditate. You get scattered very quickly. But hopefully we'll learn some good things from Bob Roth about meditation. We have today the lunches. We have 100 tables. You'll be able to pick your topic, look at the list, see who's there. And everyone here has different needs, different wants. We all come from different industries, different places. So hopefully you'll find something, not just to learn about what you have a particular interest in, but hopefully the other people that sit around the table will share your interests. You'll make relationships. These relationships hopefully will continue on. The main goal of the summit, of course, is to educate and inform. But just importantly, as importantly, it's an environment where you can connect and have conversations with other people that are in the same space. And so really that's why you're here. Now, I was told by Nancy to hold up the directory that I don't have. You all have a yellow directory. That is very important. It's one of the most valuable pieces. And I want to thank you all for being here and spending some time shaping the business of wellness. Thank you very much. And over to...
Thank you, Tony. Hi, everyone. I could not be more excited to welcome you all to our 12th Annual Global Wellness Summit, and I am your third and final welcome before we jump into the agenda. But I remember what it was like as a first-time delegate 12 years ago to wonder what exactly I would get out of a conference that brought together 200 hand-picked people from 25 countries. And fast forward now to Italy, and I know what it was an honor it was to be in that room a dozen years ago. Now, from New York City to Interlaken to Istanbul to Bali, Aspen, New Delhi, Marrakesh, Mexico City, Tyrol, Palm Beach, and now Cesena. Lucky us. You see, over the last 12 years, it's been this summit, this organization, and later, its sister nonprofit, the Global Wellness Institute, that helped me to make sense of a world that few understood just a few short years ago. It was here that I would come to get the data, the research, the justification, to help me make sense of a world that, quite honestly, I needed to make a business case for. It was an inspiration, a movement that we instinctively knew was just as good for the personal health and well-being of our planet's citizens as it was for the financial health of those fearless enough to invest in it. But let's be honest, it took some time for the rest of the world to catch up. Meanwhile, it was here, as head of global spa brands for a hotel corporation, where I founded individuals passionate enough to identify a whole new segment of the wellness economy called wellness tourism. One that was growing twice as fast as global tourism, even inspiring people from the World Travel and Tourism Council to the Financial and New York Times to take note. Not to mention my former employer, right around the time that I needed money to invest in the development of 6 international spa brands. Soon after, as vice president of a workplace wellness company, it was at the summit where I could determine what region of the world was particularly prime for workplace wellness, as well as to discover the early ROI data associated with dollar-for-dollar investments in personal health and well-being within the workforce. And even later, as I needed the right vocabulary to help reposition and rebrand an incredible network of over 25,000 wellness destinations, hi Pete Ellis, around the globe, or to have the courage to venture out on my own as a strategic advisor to companies eager to advance themselves in the wide world of wellness. It was here that I would come to learn, to share, to help identify new segments of the wellness economy, like wellness communities and lifestyle real estate, and most importantly, thanks to the creative direction and pure love of Nancy Davis, to play. To play with my fellow tribe of passionistas, as I like to call all of you, that are just as inspired and convinced by the possibilities of this trillion-dollar economy. And that is just my story. I know that each of you that are here today have your own. This year, I'm particularly excited for 3 reasons. 1, being trusted enough to stand beside Susie, the true visionary behind the summit, as well as my fellow Aussie, Tony, our amazing board of advisors, and the powerhouse GWS team that has put this event together. Second, as some of you may know, I'm once donning a new hat in a new role, pioneered by our sponsoring friends at Hyatt, so I'm just as thirsty for knowledge as I've ever been. And finally, the global wellness economy. It's also my favorite diagram that I think we should put up everywhere, Susie. And it's 10 segments of wellness that you have all helped to shape, each and every one of you. And it's been updated by incredible researchers, Catherine and Ophelia, for our collective learning pleasure, which you'll be hearing about shortly. So, for those of you in the room for the first time, whether you're joining us from a dedicated segment like fitness, mind, body, nutrition, workplace wellness, or you're coming from a particular function like architecture, consulting, marketing, human resources, I'm here to remind you that the global wellness economy is our collective raison d'etre. It's what brings us all together. It reminds us of why we're here. It makes us think of ways we may not have otherwise thought possible. And it connects us as one dedicated, pioneering tribe currently spread across 50 countries. It's for these reasons that I'm thrilled to be with you here in Italy and honored to personally welcome you to the 12th Annual Global Wellness Summit. So thank you very much.